Welcome, welcome, welcome to another edition of Morning Star Community Christian Center's Life Study. We come to you every Thursday evening live and in living color for another exciting and dynamic edition of Life Study. And the Bible is, of course, our foundation. That's what we study. That's what we learn from. That's what we meditate on. That's what we memorize to help us live better lives, to help us live more effective and more efficient and more powerful lives. And of course, this evening is no different. And as always, at the beginning of each of our sessions, what we do is we remind ourselves of what it is we are doing each time we get together. We open up our Bibles and or the digital devices on which we have our Bibles. That is, if we're not using them for the broadcast, and we hold them up and we repeat these words after me. This is God's holy word. Receive it, believe it, and achieve it. And our foundational scripture for this evening is Luke 1 and 37, where the angel says to Sister Mary, "For there will be nothing impossible with God. For there will be nothing impossible with God." And in this Christmas season, we have a very powerful and exciting lesson for you. Just before we get to the lesson, let me just make this quick announcement. It's something that you're very familiar with. As you know, this is third weekend, and every third weekend of every month, we have our food giveaway. And as you know, we've been doing this now for 20 plus years. And as always, brothers, we unload the food trucks on Friday morning, 9:15 a.m. And we begin the bagging and the boxing process. And then on Saturday morning, the day after tomorrow, Saturday morning at 8:30, we complete the bagging process. And at 9 a.m., we begin the distribution of the free food to the community, which comes to pick up food that will be helpful to their family. We feed those who are hungry, and we do it every month, and we have been doing it every month for 20 plus years now, and of course this month is no different. So again, tomorrow morning, 9:15 a.m., we need your help, volunteers, brothers. Always we need more brothers on Friday than on the other days, but we can use you on both Friday and Saturday. But tomorrow morning, 9:15 a.m., we unload the trucks, begin the process of bagging. Then on Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m., men, women, young men, young women, we appreciate your coming out to volunteer to help us complete the bagging process and begin the distribution of the free bags of food to our community at large and some members of our congregation as we on this third weekend again give food to those who are hungry in our community catchment area. Thank you so much for your wonderful cooperation. Thank you so much for your wonderful Morning Star cooperation. Now this evening we have a very wonderful program. Last Saturday we had a program sponsored by our Community Development Corporation, which is headed up by Mayor Garrett Smith. And we had at the church a group of lawyers, a group of very excellent and high-powered, extremely talented lawyers from our community, and that covered virtually all aspects of community law. Lawyers that covered areas like real estate, landlord-tenant law, personal injury law, family counseling law. We had lawyers covering virtually all aspects of the human condition, and it was just a magnificent, a fabulous program, and the talent, the talented and skilled and gifted lawyers that were present were so extremely impressive, and the information they gave was so awesomely powerful. And we're following up on that this evening with one of those attorneys who was with. In fact, she was the moderator of last week's program, and she is Sister Deisha Jackson. Sister Deisha Jackson. And she's unique in that she's not only an attorney, but she's also a minister of the gospel. And you're going to hear more about that momentarily. And we're just so excited that she has consented to be with us on this evening as our special guest. We are so happy, so pleased to have her as a guest, and so happy and so pleased that she accepted. And we're looking forward to talking with her. And you're going to be blessed by her presence. You're going to be blessed by her information. And should you need her services, you will be even more powerfully blessed. So with that, let me welcome to the program our Sister Deisha Jackson, Attorney Deisha Jackson, Minister Deisha Jackson, and you'll hear from her right now. Sister Jackson, welcome to Morning Star Community Christian Center's Life Study. Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, no, we thank you for agreeing to be with us. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into law? What stirred you? What inspired you to get into the legal profession first?
Sure. I'll take you back to when I was probably like 8 years old. And I used to listen to like Perry Mason and Matlock and these things. And as I grew, and I was in high school and college, I always I was very active in student government. I was very active in, for high school, I was president of my class for 3 years. In college, I was attorney general. And I always had a knack for sticking up for people. Like people would come to me with things and I would try to help them. I would try to help them. Someone was getting fired and I actually got involved. And even my summer jobs, I would get involved. I worked at Kmart and, a cashier got in trouble and they came to me. And I realized I felt like I was drawn to law, in terms of, as a way of helping people with their problems. And there was so much variety in the law that you can hang out your own shingle, work for a corporation, work for government. There's so many things you can do. You can get into lobbying, you can get into politics. So I felt that being a lawyer was my destiny.
And how long now have you been practicing law?
Sure. I graduated from Stetson College of Law in 1996. Okay. And so I'm sorry, 1993. I'm saying 1993. I graduated from college, and I got out in 93 from law school. Sorry, I got that number wrong. It's been a long time. I've been licensed since 1996. So in New Jersey, and then I recently got my license in New York in 2018. So it's been a good over 27 years.
Okay. So now, and now in more, I guess, more recent times, you also have gone into the ministry.
Yes. So
can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. After law school, literally, like the summer that I took the bar exam, God called me to the ministry. I actually had a dream that I thought was a little strange, and I kind of went to some ministers about it, and they were like, "Oh, you're called to preach." And it was just a very trying time for me because I just got finished taking a bar exam, which is the hardest test in America, in the world, I would say. And I was getting ready to start a job, and so I didn't really try to preach at that time or follow up on that because I just didn't feel like I had the bandwidth to go through seminary and and to learn, because after law school you're just kind of drained. And so several years ago I was made aware that I had a gift of seeing in terms of, prophesying. And I went to Bishop Jordan's School of the Prophets back in 2010. And he also prophesied to me that I was called to preach. So I started looking for a church and ended up with a church. Last year I was ordained, and I've been going to this church, Hope Cathedral in Jackson, New Jersey, for about 6 or 7 years. And I kind of revealed to them, let's say maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago, that, I've been called and it's been a long time. And, my journey to becoming a prophet, and then my journey to saying the last several years, I've been looking for a church to kind of get ordained. And my plan is to go back to school, to seminary, and to get my master's in divinity.
Hmm. Let me back up a bit. What do you specialize in any particular category of law?
Yes, I specialize in employment law right now is what I do most of: anti-discrimination cases, race cases, sex cases, pregnancy. I've done every area. I don't think there's been an area that I haven't touched upon: age, gender, just about every area.
Mm-hmm. And in the do the two areas, do the two professions, how do they does one enhance the other? Does one contradict the other? Does one make the other more effective, more efficient? Or does how do they combine, and how does that manifest in your life?
Well, I truly believe that God, it was my destiny by God to be a lawyer. Like, I believe God called me to be a lawyer as well as a pastor. And I think that God made it so because I came from parents who did not have advanced degrees. In fact, my mother didn't finish high school, and my father took a few courses. He was a minister as well, but he didn't finish seminary. So I have two parents that don't have PhDs, don't have masters or anything, but they supported me in going. And I felt in my heart and my soul today, looking back, I know it was God who who put it together, because coming from where I came from, I don't think that you would guess that I would become a lawyer. Do they help each other? I think God leads people to me. I'm going to say this. Recently, I've always said this to people. I've been in private practice on my own for 8 years. I have an extensive history of government in my background. I've worked for the Attorney General's office. I was in charge of state police affairs. I've been a prosecutor. I've worked for the city of Newark. And it's one thing to have a paycheck every day, every week. When you have a paycheck, it's great. I thank God for the jobs. But when you are in business for yourself and you don't know when that money's coming in, that's when you really see God work. And I feel that I know that I was meant to do what I'm doing because I don't advertise a lot. And I get at least 4 calls a week for 8 years. And I know that that's Jesus. I know that God pays me. God makes sure that all my bills are paid. God makes sure that I have clients. God makes sure that I go on vacation. God makes sure that I eat. If it wasn't for God, I would not be here. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, because but for him making it happen in terms of referrals, in terms of bringing people in my life, in terms of cases settling, in terms of, helping me to navigate the waters and being in business, I would have no law practice. So I truly believe that God is the reason for me being a lawyer, and also for my career and putting me in this place. And I'm going to say this to you. There were a few jobs, I'm going to say in the last like 8 or 9 years ago, I was terminated from a job. And I had said to God, well, what do you want me to do? And the Spirit's like, well, I'm giving you business. Why are you asking me what I want you to do when I'm giving you business? Right. And so for me, my career is a testimony of faith. And it is the crux, or it is a testimony of the foundation of our faith, right? Because faith is about what you don't see, what you don't know. And you got to just keep walking and claiming the word and claiming that God's going to do it and believing that it happened. And you got to do all of that in the kingdom for it to happen. Well, let me tell you, being in business helps me really to be a better Christian than I was before I was in business. Because as a lawyer and as a business person, you don't know where it's coming from, but you got to have faith that it's coming. You got to have faith that God has it. You got to have faith that the bills are going to be paid. You got to have faith that you're going to do the best job that you can. Now, you don't always win. And obviously, one of the things I would like God to fix is I want to win all the time. So I've been praying about that. So, does it help? Yes, I have a business, and I sow seed, I tithe, I do offerings, and I ask God to continue to bless my clients, to help me to make a difference, because I really want to be a lawyer. It's not just about the money. We need to get paid. I got bills to pay. And you can ask any of my clients. I tell them, I have bills to pay, but I have integrity. And I will not do anything that's going to violate trust, violate laws, violate God, violate Jesus, violate the Bible. I'm not doing it. I have integrity. And that's the difference between me and someone who doesn't believe in Jesus Christ.
Excellent. Excellent. Can you cite, does something jump out to you if I were to ask you the question, what is to this point, what is the most exciting experience that you've had so far as an attorney?
Oh, wow. I mean, there have been a few things that have happened, early on in my career when I was a prosecutor, and I cross-examined somebody so well that I discredited them as a witness. Now, mind you, it was in juvenile and I was a baby prosecutor, but boy, did that feel so good. And I'll never forget, how that went. And the judge was laughing at me because I was just so excited. I was like, okay, get off the stand. You're no longer a good witness. I just cut you up. It was so funny. So that was a memorable moment. The other one would be I got a chance to argue in the New Jersey Supreme Court when I was deputy director of the Office of State Police Affairs. At the time, I believe my boss was Peter Harvey. He was the first Black attorney general, and I've known Peter for many, many years before that. And there was a case that came up that dealt with police officers being charged for violations of their standard operating procedures. And there's a rule that says they have to be charged within 45 days of getting sufficient information. Lo and behold, a lawyer who I knew wanted to challenge that and say that it meant 45 hard days. You got 45 days to do an internal affairs investigation. And I said, Kevin, don't do it. You're going to lose because that's not what it says. And lo and behold, he took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And I had an opportunity to argue in the New Jersey Supreme Court. And the case is reported at State v. Roberts. It's on my website. And I won 7-0. So that was another good thing. And the significance of it, I don't know if it really helps or hurts the public, but it does help police officers or at least state troopers that, when you do an internal affairs investigation, you have to have sufficient information to charge. And so the rule really is saying you have 45 days from when you have that sufficient information. So that way it's not a rush to judgment. It is based on you having information to charge them with violations of their own rules or regs. Now, the municipal police departments and unions have not brought this issue up in the appellate division, nor do they want to come close. They still want to make the same arguments because of that case. So as far as I know, it hasn't been reviewed in terms of local police departments, but they know that if it was, the New Jersey Supreme Court would say it's the same rule, it's the same thing. So that was another instance. And then recently, in the last couple of years, and I think I told this story on Saturday, I had a client who was called the N-word, and he worked for the Steve Wynn Corporation, and that was a good case. It took a while, and we went through, I think we could do a little mini series on that between him and I, because of what we went through to get to his settlement was a lot. And he kind of was very emotional, lost it for a while. We had to regroup, but eventually we sued them for the N-word being used. And we settled that case, and we settled it in high six figures. So it was good for him. At least he was able to, put some money away from his kid and move on with his life. But it was the kind of case that if you look at my LinkedIn, I say, this is the reason why we practice.
Mm,
My motto is I'm dismantling discrimination one case at a time.
mm,
And that's a
mm.
case of an example of that, where I got to kick Steve Wynn in the butt for allowing his employees to, call my client a nigger, and, you're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
So, and what you did was not sufficient. So that's, in the last couple of years, that's been, kind of a highlight case for me in my private practice. And it keeps me going to know that, every once in a while you get a case where you're like, this is why I do it.
Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating. Let me call Brother Kendrick. If you're still there, can you come on the screen, Brother Kendrick? I have a question for you. Uh,
Sure. Uh-huh.
yes. Listen, what I'd like to do, I'd like to see if we have some questions for Sister Jackson. And Sister Jackson, I'm assuming that that's okay with you.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm checking the Facebook and YouTube now. There aren't any questions just yet.
Right,
But
because I haven't asked for any yet, but
Okay.
I'm about to. But I wanted to check with you first to make
Yeah.
sure you were okay with, like, summarize, because I got to send them to the chat room where you are. So I'll come to you to get them to present them to Sister Jackson. Is that okay?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, all right. So as I said, we're talking with Sister Attorney Minister of the Gospel, Deisha Jackson, and she is high-powered, equal opportunity, anti-discrimination, um, um, to use her phrase, kick butt to make things right, attorney. You and we've been blessed to have her as a part of a community panel of lawyers this past Saturday at the church, and now we have her here as a guest. Now, if you have a question for her, from the legal perspective, obviously, keep in mind that she, excuse me, she can't answer specific questions if she doesn't know the specific detail. That'd be like calling up a doctor, and asking for a diagnosis, and the doctor's never seen you. General advice can be given, but specificity is something that, of course, would require special consultations and so forth. Keep that in mind. But if you have a question, go to the chat room now. Go to the chat room now. You may have a legal question. You may be confronting something right now in your workplace. You may be confronting something right now in some of your space, in some of your life spaces, and you want some overall legal direction. Go to the chat room, post your question. We'll try to take it and get you a general response, and perhaps a general direction. All right. That's Sister Deisha Jackson. She's an attorney and a minister of the gospel. You've heard the general introductory comments that she has already made. All right. So if you have a question, go to the chat room now. Go to the chat room now and present your question, and we'll try to take as many as we can in the context of the time that we have. All right. So you're an attorney. Now, in your work as a minister and as a pastor, in your pastoral work, do you have a particular focus, or are you a pastor over a certain area at your church, or no?
No, I don't have a particular focus. I am going to start a school of the prophets several months ago, and you will appreciate this. We were at an ordination, and the Spirit spoke to me about a school of the prophets. And the ministers, there was a group of ministers, we always help to do the program when other ministers are being ordained. And another minister tapped me on my shoulder and said, "You should start a school of the prophets." I said, "The Spirit just said that to me." You see how fast that was confirmed? I said, You know, the spirit just said school. And then she taps, I don't even know her well. She taps me on my shoulder and goes, you should start a school of the prophets. I said, get out of here. Get out of here. I said, look at how I'm like, Jesus, can you confirm the Powerball numbers? Like, can you do that? Okay. It's like, come on. You're confirming the school of the prophets, right? So because of that, I told the lead pastors of the church, you know, so I've created a curriculum based on some books. I'm working with a pastor. Hopefully I'll try to get that off the ground in February to do a school of the prophets, which should be open to anyone to come. We're just trying to figure out cost, you know, logistics and how to do that. And then I basically help with what needs to be helped with. I've been a greeter at my church for a long time. I'm helping with introducing the church to new people. I'm learning how to do that. So I help with the children's ministry sometimes. So I kind of make myself available because our lead pastor is like, you're a pastor, be available, be here every Sunday, you know, be available. And then at times, God will tell me to go both services. God gives me word for a lot of the people in the congregation. So I speak to them, you know, about what God is telling me to tell them, which is what God is utilizing me for, with giving me that gift. And so I do that work.
Mhm. Again, we're talking to attorney Adisha Jackson. She's also a minister of the gospel. And if you have a question for her, you should be going to the chat room with your question, and we're gonna go there shortly to take whatever questions we may have, and in the context of the time that we have. Have you found that discrimination in the workplace, is this something that is trending trending up, trending down, remaining the same, getting worse, getting better, getting uglier, getting more subtle, getting just exactly what have you found, if anything, in your experience?
You know, it's hard for me to say if because I don't have all of the cases, right? Like I only have people who come to me and talk to me, and I don't necessarily read the periodicals, like unless I need it for a case or, you know, or something like that. What I would say, if I were to say anything, I'm going to say this. As a lawyer, it never ceases to amaze me, the stupidity of people and how they treat others. It never ceases to amaze me, the stuff that goes on at work. And you would think that after the civil rights movement, Title VII, the law against discrimination, Martin Luther King got shot, Medgar Evers got shot, you know, all these things, they marched and killed kids, all this stuff that's went on, and all these laws to protect you. And you still have people saying nigger, you still have sexual harassment, you still have, you know, just the things that go on at work, and you still have people who are violating the law, and some with the support of management, you know, and others not so much. But that's what amazes me. Is it getting better or worse? I can't really say. I say that when people come to me and tell me stuff, oh yeah, I told my employer to stop doing this and they fired me. What is wrong? You don't have this. And this is why New Jersey, as well as the federal government, they require you to post the laws against discrimination at your workplace. You're supposed to post them. Most people who work, if you walk into HR or somewhere, you're supposed to see how to file an EEO complaint. The law against discrimination says you can't be, you know, discriminated against at work based on race and sex. And even though those laws are posted, and even though you have training, and most employees are signing off on getting handbooks, right? Most employees have to sign off on saying they had training, correct? Even if they do training online, you still have people who do the darndest things that you say, what makes you think that you can do these things? Now let's take it to the next level of how employers will try to protect some people and others they throw under the bus, right? So it's amazing that it goes on at the level it goes on. I guess for me, because of the protections of the law, you would think that people would do better. I'm not saying that private corporations or governments are not training. I'm not saying that they don't take what we call remedial action sometimes when things are violated. What I'm saying is people are mean to each other at work. And I think the hostile work environments that are created causes other people to be mean. Part of me wants to say people need Jesus. They need to, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
People need Jesus, y'all, because it seems like if they could spread love and God's love and, you know, even, and listen, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. And because I'm an anti-discrimination lawyer, I'm not against gays. I'm not going to be against other religions because I fight for everybody to be protected. You understand? So even if you want to call, if you believe in Allah or you believe in Buddha, you know, every religion has some God that and the God says, be great to each other, right? It's like nobody listens to that. They get to work and they forget their own religion. Even if it's religion, I'm not a big person on religiosity and religion. You know, it's God, it's spirit, it's kingdom, it's Jesus. But they don't even follow that. If more people would even embrace the love of their own religion to show that, I think we would have a better workplace. You understand? It's not only just having the laws to protect yourself, but as human beings, we just don't treat each other well.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I say that you need Jesus, and I say that you need spirit, because many people are suffering from psychological disorders, failure. They are emotionally in pain. They are hurt people, and hurt people hurt people. That's why my ministry, my personal ministry, is called Healed People Heal People.
Yeah.
That's the name of my personal ministry. And there's a reason for that, because in my profession and in my life, everyone knows this saying, hurt people hurt people. And I think that's what goes on in the workplace, Dr. Evans. That's what happens. Is it getting worse? Probably. You know, if they were to take a survey as to how they're treated now versus how you were treated 40 years ago. Well, 40 years ago, you didn't have the protection of the law. So calling you a nigger when you walked in the door wasn't a big deal. When you came to work, hey, nigger, sit down. That's what they did. Now they can't do that. They don't say it to you, but they don't give you the promotion.
Yeah.
When you went to Harvard and you're the smartest person in the room, they give it to Billy Bob because Billy Bob's white and knows somebody.
Yeah.
They won't. They say we're not going to give it to that nigger. We're going to give it to Billy Bob.
Yeah.
Right?
I hear you. Right. You're right. You're
right. This is what they do. And then after they give it to Billy Bob, they treat you like crap. And you have a Harvard degree. And you're saying, why? Do you know how many of my clients have to come to me? And it's because most of us didn't grow up dealing with racism. Our parents grew up dealing with it. Their parents grew up dealing with it. So they're used to someone calling them a nigger and then having to deal with that because you came from a society where us being below was accepted and you had to accept it. If you said something, they shoot you. And then all of a sudden you get the law coming in saying it's okay. So we all had to get used to, oh, wait, I got some rights here. And sometimes even though you had rights, it didn't make difference if you were down south. Right? Oh, you nigga, you think you got rights? They kill you anyway. Right? So now we've had rights for a good 30, 40 years. You know, it hasn't been that long. 65 is the civil rights, right? So, I mean, it hasn't been that long. So now you have these rights for a long period of time. To me, people find other ways to discriminate.
Yeah. No
and
doubt.
they cover it. and they do it differently. And this is why discrimination is so hard to do when you're proving it, because it would be easy if everybody said nigger. I wish that were my cases. Those settle quickly. People are not, they still do it. It amazes me, but thank you. I get paid on those cases, right? But people just don't do that, and they cover it up. And you got to get circumstantial evidence to show how all the white people were treated better, than the minorities or the females. It takes a longer time to prove. Even down south, they're hip to the knowledge until they put on the white sheets, that we can't just do it the way we were doing it, So has it changed? Yeah, because racism and discrimination has changed and how it's done. So the law gives us protection, but did it go away? Absolutely not. Is it better? Maybe. It's probably better to have the laws to protect you than not. But at sometimes it doesn't matter, because hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think you made your point on that one. For sure. Brother Kendrick, any
Yes.
questions come in?
We do have questions that came in, but I just had a question to piggyback on what
Yes.
Ms. Jackson just advised on.
Yes.
Affirmative action just got overturned recently, right, in the last year or so. Is it harder to argue a case of discrimination now based off of the laws that's still in place, or is it more so that was more of just for specific groups?
Well, the affirmative action has to do with affirmatively creating a plan to bring people in somewhere for some reason to rectify some past discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
My cases that I deal with are people who are already working somewhere, who were fired, suspended, who lost something, who they told on someone, they left their job because they got to the point they couldn't take it anymore. Constructive termination, where you can't take it anymore. You got to walk out. So my cases don't really deal with affirmative action. My cases deal with the people who benefited from affirmative action. And I get to say, look, you discriminated against the person who benefited by doing this, that, and the third. But I think it's a shame. I mean, I think that I don't think we caught up. I think that affirmative action is still needed. Some of my friends would disagree, but, I think it's that racism and the way they killed us and the way they hung us on trees and the way they kept us out of education and the way that they didn't give us money after the war to buy homes. I mean, I could go through so many areas of where we were discriminated against and how far we are as people of color behind white people in this country, that to me, affirmative action should never stop. Because we need it in order to rectify the damage that you did based on our race. You were hanging us on trees even after the Civil Rights Act and the voting. You were still lynching us and not giving us opportunities, not giving us money. And so now all of a sudden you get this white Republican, conservative, whoever, and they make these decisions. And listen, I've already put out there, I would like to be the one with the case that comes to overturn that. If I can find a case, I'll go to the United States Supreme Court, because I want to argue why the lady is there. Her last name's Jackson, so I want to act like she's my cousin.
Okay.
Thank you. So we do have a question from Sister Irene Alton.
Yes.
Do you take on civil service cases? And also, do you do discrimination cases based on gender, i.e. salaries, men and women doing the same job, same title, but males making the highest salary of more than women? If so, if so, what type of proof must one have to file a successful case?
So I do take on civil service cases. I take them on far and few and in between, depending on what the proofs are, because I know that going up against the government and civil service, sometimes I've had one where I won. I had a case with they were trying to suspend somebody for 20 days because they said she was threatening to blow the building up, which didn't happen. And the person who's told on her was this lady who didn't like her, she was white. She hated my client who was black. She had talked about her behind her back, and I managed to get that case dismissed because she just wasn't credible, nor did the chief who's supposed to do the investigation do an investigation. So I say those things to say with civil service cases, I know government like the back of my hand. I did 21 years state and county and city. So I understand that stuff like the back of my hand. I am also a hearing officer in a township. So, there's pretty much nothing I haven't seen. I used to be in charge of enforcing the racial profiling consent decree for state troopers. I've dealt in everything from drug cases to stealing to the simple, you came late to work, absenteeism, whatever it is, I've dealt with it. It really depends on what kind of proofs you have. If you're going to go to the Office of Administrative Law to have one of those judges overturn it, or if the hearing officer is really going to look at, what you had. I mean, I had a good hearing officer who really said, you know what, you're right, nobody was credible. But sometimes you don't get that in civil service. So you'll get someone who's going to uphold whatever the employer does, no matter what. And sometimes the OAL judges, they may listen, they may not. I've been to OAL 1,000 times. So I've been to the Office of Administrative Law. I have a case there now. One of an employee who was defending herself against another employee who pushed her, and they suspended her for 6 months. They wanted to terminate her for defending herself. That's why I took the case, because I'm like, you're wrong. It's going to be overturned. So the kind of proofs you need, I mean, I think it depends on what it is that they're charging you with. You need to, I think you start out with, what's the substance of the charges? Do you have evidence against, I didn't do that, it wasn't me, or are you testing the credibility of the witnesses that they have that said that you did it? Or was there an excuse for you doing it? I was late because my husband got sick and the kids got sick and I couldn't get there. Is that enough? Or is there some legal issue that says they can't find you guilty because they violated the law in some way? So those are just some examples of some defenses, in terms of government employment and civil service cases. What was the second question she had?
Second question was,
I think you covered both of them.
yeah, I think so. It was in regards to like men making higher salary than women.
So what she's talking about, there's an act that just came out. The law against discrimination covers discrimination based on gender. And under the LAD, you can sue for if men are being treated differently than women. But they have an act called the Diane B. Allen Act that specifically deals with wage discrimination when men are getting paid higher than women or women are getting paid higher than men. And so there are statute limitations on that. There's specific things you need to show. But it is an act that became an act. I'm going to say within the last 10 years. Because it didn't exist 10 years ago. So if you look up the Diane B. Allen Act, that'll kind of talk to you about discrimination in wages. And then I think, in addition to going to court, you can sue under that act. You can sue under the New Jersey law against discrimination, but you also have the wage hour. You can file a complaint with the Department of Labor with the wage hour. And I'm not sure if I don't do much wage hour in terms of administrative. So I'm not sure if they have any jurisdiction in terms of whether there's discrimination. The act is a statute that probably needs to be enforced as a private cause of action. Like you need to sue. I think that's what that act would probably provide, but I'm not sure. What I would say is anything that I'm saying, please check with a local attorney. Please look up the law. Please get a consultation, because I'm kind of taking questions off the cuff and I don't want to lead anyone down the wrong path. But the wage hour administrative body, I believe, is part of the Department of Labor. And if you have a wage issue, such as you didn't get paid, for wages and things like that, you can go there and file a complaint on your own. I am not sure if they deal with discrimination, but they might.
And there was a follow-up question is, what type of proof must one have to file such case?
Well, I think that when you're dealing with any kind of, these people are treated better than me, you might only have an example of 2 or 3 people that you think are getting paid. Like you're not going to get the evidence until you file, really. I mean, if you know that, hey, I know that Bob he has less education than me and he got a bonus and I didn't, you know. You usually, most plaintiffs come to the table with anecdotal information. I mean, sometimes you might get an email, you might come across like they sent out everybody's salary, you know, like, and you got that in your, you know, your email or something like that. I mean, but a lot of times people are coming to you with, you know, Bob, Joe, and Ricky, they got a raise and I didn't, you know, and I do more work than them. So what kind of proof do you need? You need proof that the men are being treated differently than the women. Even if it's one person, you know, that could cause, I do the same job he does, he's getting paid X, I have more education, I should get paid Y. Now, this is all considering what are the requirements for the job. Are you guys similarly situated people? Does Bob deserve to get paid more because he has 3 certifications you don't have? Is it a discretionary call, or was it something put in place because there were old rules? And there's so much stuff that has to be looked at, because you can't just say, you know, you're going to say, oh, Bob's getting paid more than me. Well, you got to look at all the possible reasons for that. Because remember, when you bring up discrimination with any employer, whether it's wage, race, or whatever, I tell every person that comes to me in a consult, the first thing the employer is going to say to me, oh, they're not a good employee. We had to charge them 5 times. They came in late yesterday. They cursed out their employer. They had this issue and that issue, and their performance is not good. That's the other thing. Oh, they're not a good performer. So the first thing that employers go for whenever you do bring up discrimination is going to be something wrong with you. So I don't anticipate you would have all the evidence, but if you came to a lawyer and you had enough where it looks like there's an issue, we would ask for it in discovery if we had, or we would do a demand letter and say, look, we think we have an issue here. Do you want to discuss it? And if they do, we can present what we have and try to settle it without going to trial. But if you went to trial or a hearing, you definitely could get more, you know. And like I said, how do you prove patterns? Well, I need to know how many white people work here, how many men work here, how many women? What are the men making? What are the women making? Why are they making that?
Okay. Any additional questions, Brother Kendrick?
Not as of right now, no.
Okay. Well, Sister Jackson, how can people reach you if they want to consult with you or retain you?
Sure. My website is www.dljlawgroup.com. And my email is djackson@dljlawgroup.com. So you can feel free to go on my website. There's a link you can hit. You can write to me and say, hey, I'd like to do something. Or you can call me 732-409-5172 and leave me a message. And I usually get back. I make it my business to try to get back to people within 24 hours. If it's not me, then I have, you know, my assistant get back and kind of do intake. And I do paid consultations for 2 hours. That's usually how I start, unless you're already in court or you're in the EEOC. You know, I listen to see if it's something that I want to take on. In terms of you already litigating the matter. But 99% of the time, I do consultations. They're paid because my consults take 2-3 hours. It's not like a bankruptcy consult or criminal. I shot someone. Okay, be quiet. That's just not like how it is for us. In labor and employment, we have a lot of questions. You know, we got to ask. And a lot of times people will come to me and say, I have this kind of case. I'm like, no, you don't. You have this kind of case, you know, and because they don't know, that's why they're coming to you, you know, is to get right. And I'm very honest with people. Look, if you don't have it, you don't have it. If you do, you do. And here's what I think I can do for you. So I don't sugarcoat things. I give you the straight, whatever you tell me based on what I know and what I've been through, which is what we're doing. You know, we're using our experience to kind of guide you.
So, closing comments. We're up against the clock, and we're about out of time. So I want to give you some last moments for anything you'd like to say to our listening and viewing audience in closing?
Well, I would like to say to just kind of put God first every day, because I think that, one thing in law, like I said, hurt people hurt people. And I think that we all need to be protected with God's grace and God's love and in the spirit of God. And that we need to remember that's who we belong to. He's our Father. And that's what we need to be walking in, his faith and his spirit, and put on the armor, of God every day, so that you can deal with what comes at you. God is here to help us. I don't think anyone would disagree that God wants us to be prosperous, and God wants us to live a good life, and God wants us to have a great career. And because all of these things, he wants you to love him and to be able to go out and bring other people to him to show his love, So how do we do that? We don't do that in a state of misery, we do that in a state of peace and in love. And I think we need to always have God in our head and in our mind constantly in order to live that life. So when we go to work, we don't choke someone. I mean, at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's practical, advice. But I mean, I think a lot of us are dealing with hurt people at work. And as an employment lawyer and a Christian and a pastor and a prophet, I prophesy turnaround for anybody who's going, through anything that is hurting them, at their jobs or at their homes, and that they feel that they can't get through. And I ask God to just bring peace to them and bring clarity, and bring light. Jesus says his burden is light and the yoke is easy. What does that really mean? That has to mean that God can give us the peace and the love and the wherewithal to get through life. It can't mean anything else other than that. And if we're taking on, what Jesus says is burden is light, yoke is easy, I should be able to breathe. I should be able to make it. I should be prosperous. And so I believe that's what God's word is telling us. And I think we need to believe it more and keep saying it. Like you said, we got to keep speaking the word in our life in order for it to manifest, in order for us to combine with our faith, to grow our faith. How do you grow your faith if you're not speaking the word? So I just believe that's what we need to do in order to make the world a better place, and in order for us to have less litigation. Even though that would hurt me, I would rather it be less litigation and people heal and be able to work their jobs and help others than to constantly hurt other people.
Yeah. And once again, your contact information.
Sure. My number is 732-409-5172. My email, djackson@dljlawgroup.com. And my website is www.dljlawgroup.com.
And so, and let me extend to you once again my personal gratitude and the gratitude of our Community Development Corporation and our church, Morning Star Community Christian Center Church, for your gracious acceptance and presence here on this evening. You've been absolutely wonderful and a blessing with the information that you have shared with us, and we thank you for giving of your time and your expertise.
Thank you.
And let me thank those of you who have been viewing and listening to us on this evening. We thank you for being present, and we want you to remember that tomorrow, this is the third weekend. This is our food giveaway weekend. As you know, we've been doing it, as I said, for the past 20 plus years. Volunteers, brothers, we need you tomorrow morning, 9:15 a.m. to help us unload the food trucks and begin the bagging of the food for the distribution on Saturday morning. And at 8:30 Saturday morning, brothers, sisters, young and old, we need your help in completing the bagging process as we distribute the food to members of our community and our congregation at large. Thank you so much for your wonderful Morning Star cooperation. Thank you for being with us on this evening. And remember, we join us this coming Sunday, 9:30 a.m. for our worship service. It begins every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m., 1009 Chandler Avenue. And we welcome you to be present with us on this coming Sunday. We look forward to your being there, and invite somebody, bring them with you. They will be blessed, you will be blessed, we'll all be blessed together as we lift up the name of Jesus. And so with that, we want you to stay strong and stay blessed, and and stay well, and we'll see you on Sunday morning.